is, it's, I don't know if it's a moral question, what it is, but there is that consideration when we do start counting end runway use is to look at a population weighted, which will mean that, well, it basically will mean, one person in Milton may get 10 planes for somebody in a more densely populated area gets 1 plane, and that's what's considered fair. That's what the population weighted average would be.
2 questions for you. One is Boston the only community in the country that has like the CAC type of model? Because it'd be interesting to see, like, is this unique? And and if it isn't unique, is there other communities that we can compare and contrast and see how they navigate this? Because I assume that they've pinned other communities against 1 or 2, like what's happening with us.
Yeah, I don't know.
I believe Minneapolis has a CAC as well. I think it came up when I was doing some of my research. I didn't look at that specific question, but I certainly can. The requirement for the CAC and the Bland study came about as a result of the environmental review that was done for the 27s and was part of the record of decision of the FAA and Massport in doing that construction. And it was a legal requirement that this noise study be implemented. So there may be other institutions and other construction projects across the country for airport expansion that have required similar types of noise study and expansion.
Right. And just building off that too, is that obviously there's issues with the Massport and there's obviously kind of shadiness of, stalling tactics, whatever you want to say. So my point is that from a legal perspective, is there a way that we can basically whistleblow this, the scenario? I mean, it isn't fair, and there's a civil justice, because even though Milton's dealing with it, you have Hyde Park and Dorchester and Roxbury, and they're dealing with economic situations, some of Milton, some not, but the point is that there's a civil justice perspective to this too, that they may not be able to afford legal representation, and that in itself is unjust and unfair too. So from an end runway use, I mean, it's just not Milton per se. I mean, there's, Hyde Park and everyone else that's dealing with that as well.
Yeah. Well, in some of the notes that I've read from before I was representative, just to be clear, Daryl Palmactor and I butt heads, but we're really not arch enemies. I mean, I have a lot of respect for him, and we do share knowledge. We do butt heads sometimes. So, but anyway, one of the things that I found in minutes that he said, because he is a fair person, I believe, he wanted to look at what if we removed all of the restrictions on all of the runways and all of the flight paths, how would we then distribute the planes? Because part of what the 27, that Karis mentioned does, and Phil was the first person to point this out, is they go just a little bit due west, which is the way the planes are taking off. Then they make a southerly turn, and they go right over Roxbury. That's a community of people that have a very difficult time just making it through the day and putting food on their table. But now, instead of going across parts of Jamaica Plain and Brookline, they're going over that. So at one point, Darrell was trying to get this, this was before he was president, trying to get the committee to look at what if we just remove some, because there are other restrictions too on some of these runways. Unfortunately, 4R doesn't seem to have any restriction. 4L does, though. They can't land on 4L after 11 o'clock, is something I just read.
So far.
Yes, yeah, but where that came from, how can it, I mean, this is one of the things I hope somebody can figure out, is where did that come from, and how easily can it be changed?
There used to be a restriction in 4 right after midnight.
Really? Okay. Yeah, because these things just change, and if you're blindsided by them after they happen. So anyway, that's I think that that there's been a lot of people concerned, and some of the longer term CAC reps are the ones I'm finding saying, what about social justice? It's just a really difficult path to take. And
but it's the best path.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I think three things for sure. First of all, the landings in Logan will increase in the future.
Yep.
They will figure out a way to do it. Whether it's in four right, four left, a combination, they will bring as many planes in as they can because they have an incentive to do so, because they're a profit-making organization, and this is how they make money. They make money by landings. Secondly, I really believe that as close as they are, they're going to figure out a way to bring in more planes than four left.
I think so too.
They,
And
the
if-
Volps study said it, they gave scenarios for the next 3 or 4
Yeah,
years.
and it's not a pretty sight, because those planes now, and I have seen them during the day coming in, you know, separated by 100 feet, and they're right next to each other, and nobody who looks at Logan doesn't see that. And
Yeah.
thirdly, I think there's no question that the noise over Milton from the takeoffs, you know, we don't hear it on the hill, but you guys on the western part of the city really get the 27s and 33s. And that didn't used to be the case. So the real moral argument, which the town has to take into account and start raising money for, is that Milton as a community can't be penalized to the extent that it is. That's the best argument.
Right.
There are other alternatives. They should grasp those alternatives whenever they can to be fair. Because, you know, you got the moral argument, then you get the technical. You could get bogged down in the technical for
Right.
years. I mean, Darrell can quote you chapter and verse, and I do think he's fair. But, you know, that's why it's gone nowhere, because of the technical stuff. And then you have the legal. You know, people like Brookline are going to stop it. You know, you can say, let's spread it to Braintree and let's spread it to Dedham. You think Braintree and Dedham are going to take this line down? There's no way.
Well, yeah, fair is not a majority.
Yeah.
We want fairness, but fair is not a majority. And I don't know how we make it a majority. I don't think we can.
I think the town has to
I think I
make
do too.
that argument.
Well, and like I say,
always believe
after that meeting where I was basically misquoted. I said it can't get any worse, and they quoted me as saying that I said it wasn't any worse in Milton, which is just false. I just thought, I can't do this, but, I mean, people's lives are affected by this. Our health is affected. It really does hit me, you know, deep inside my soul to think that this is going on to people in Milton or anywhere. And the thought that, the knowledge that I'm going to fail if I have to do this myself really did scare me. And so I appreciate that people are paying attention to this, and I think as a group we can get something done. I came up with some things. I don't think that these are necessarily the best way of doing it, but at least we've got to do something, because like I say, it's just, it is a moral issue. It's an ethical issue. It's just wrong.
I agree. What's a timeline for getting a legal expert? I mean, not to say that you're not legal, but a FAA expert, you know what I mean, that, you know, lives and breathes as that knows the nuances. Is there a timeline? I mean,
That's something we'll discuss with the Board of Selectmen in executive session.
But I just want to come back to your point, David. That is an argument that has been made. When we filed the comment letter on the 4L, that is the argument, that we have we're in a unique situation because we have multiple RNFs
And it was a good
going over
letter.
Milton.
Yep.
And that's something that we have been pushing and making, and we have to continue to do so. I thought you were going to ask Jen about a timeline on the letter that we'd be putting together, and I don't know what the committee schedule is, but it seems we should take the task that we want to take a little bit of time to write up the technical analysis, work on a draft, make sure legal counsel's comfortable with it, circulate it among the committee, get comments from people, and probably get it, maybe target 2 weeks to go through that whole process. And
the reason why I'm saying that is because I've talked to two aviation lawyers in the last couple of weeks. I think I've brought you up to speed on this, and I think I passed around emails detailing everything, so I'm saying this in a public forum. Both lawyers said to me that any correspondence that a town writes needs to have an expert, you know, scrubbing it and making sure that technically the different nuances and the language are up to par. One lawyer said to me that the letter that was written to the FAA for the 4L probably needs tweaking and probably needs to be resubmitted because it could be stronger. So these are the things that where in brief conversations, they're finding holes already. So I just want to make sure as a group that we're working together and making sure that, because Cindy and everyone here are, you know, we're all volunteers here, and we're all working together to reduce the impact. But quite honestly, no one at this table has the legal expertise to know what to say from a FAA standpoint and giving us our best positioning to making sure that we're hitting him in the gut, basically. So I just want to put that on the table.
We have very competent legal counsel. For the
It's
record.
no, it's not. No, it's not you.
Yeah,
It's you know what I mean. I'm saying it's like going, as someone said, like you don't go to your primary doctor to get orthopedic surgery. So it's like
That's right, Jim, but I just want to respond. We have very competent town council and legal counsel, and they at times consult with other attorneys who have expertise in certain areas as necessary, but responding to regulatory proposals is something that is not uncommon for Kara. She's an environmental lawyer and a litigator and has a lot of experience in this area. So I thought the letter was very good, and we certainly can talk with other people, and as we go through the process, consider consulting with whoever may be necessary. But I just want to say for the record that that's a selectman's issue, and we're very comfortable and very grateful for the assistance and the work that we had on the 4L letter, and I did think it was very good, and Karis is doing a lot of work and talking with a lot of people on the sidelines, and that's the sort of thing that's the public doesn't see. So sometimes the public might think that's not happening, and that's just not true. As she said at the beginning of the meeting, a lot of that happens in executive sessions or in individual conversations, so we shouldn't assume that any of that isn't happening, I guess is the point that we really should convey.
but I think that's good to communicate.
One of the things my recommendations are that all these different groups write letters. It could be equally effective if we had one letter and we had the school committee sign it, we had the Board of Selectmen sign it. I'm not wedded to this. I just wanted to mention that
Yeah,
that actually sounds
I'd like
a-
to just, to add that I think that at the end of the day, I think that all of us here are committed, like you, to this entire issue, and we all know it affects our town, and we want to make sure that we can alleviate this problem. And I think that at the end of the day, we're trying to all join hands here, and your suggestion is well taken. I think that, ultimately, we would like to be able to send a letter and have everybody on board together, and we would like to utilize all the resources we have, whether it be a grassroots committee, whether it be other young people in town who are really kind of, taking a lot of beating on this, and we want to get as many people as involved, because we want to have one train go down the track, and it should be filled with all the same people who are passionate and help guide the Board of Selectmen so that we can make the best decisions possible for the town.
Yeah, I'm kind of picturing though, what, it might be nice to have you guys sign it, the school sign it, the park commissioner sign it. I don't know what the cemetery people sign it.
Yeah, I think, yeah, exactly.
Board of
I
Health.
think at the end of the day, though, we want a collaborative effort for everybody who has the passion and the wherewithal to help support us, okay? This committee, the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Health, so that we're all on the same page and we're all fighting for the same thing.
So do we want to target maybe 2 weeks for the time to get a draft circulated? Does that make sense, Tom?
That's
Roxanne,
probably, yeah, that's
Garris?
reasonable.
Yes.
Because it's not, just to clarify, there was some concern that there might be a vote taken on November 12th, but that's not the case. Cindy's clarified that for us, that was incorrect information, and so we don't have to worry about having something in before the 12th to ask for action before the 12th. We want to spend the time to make sure we get the right analysis and the letter says what we need it to say, and then we can go forward.
Yeah, my only concern
necessary.
is these meetings come up every 2 months. The next one will be in January, when we'll probably have a blizzard or something. And so, we're just, the train has left the station, so.
We should try to get it in before the 12th.
It needs to be a good letter too, so whatever we can do.
Could I just confirm 3 points? So what Phil had said, that the Blands is not trying to reduce the noise for the most affected towns. There's no, not at all. Okay, they're not even thinking about that.
It has not come up in the meetings that I've been to, or in the meeting minutes and various things I've read from previous. Yeah.
Okay, and they don't take into consideration at all the number of noise complaints that people, phone or email into Massport?
They have not. Now, it did show up, they did report that in the draft report for the test one, and that's where they did note these 6 communities that seem to have a lot of complaints. Winchester was the one that I mentioned. I have no idea what flights are going over them. my guess is that their complaints are legitimate. It's just, this is how, in the dark, most of us, and you know, I try to figure this stuff out, so if I don't get it, I think there are a lot of people that probably aren't noticing too. So it's part of it, but it's just kind of there. Just like they posted on the internet, right?
Right.
It's like it's there, nobody really seems to pay much attention to it.
Even though ours were increased so dramatically.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And the last one, this justice issue, so somebody could live just as close to the airport as we do, or even closer, and because they're in a more densely populated area, they don't have to pay any of the price of having this proximity to the airport. That's basically.
Well, the population-weighted runway use would do that.
Yeah. But I see that in the Bland's, like two especially, they like to say, oh, we're reducing the number of
yeah.
people from,
Right.
that we're increasing the number for this people and lowering the number for, and
Yeah,
as
well,
long as the number that they're reducing, it doesn't matter, it seems to matter, how much they increase the noise for a lower number of people.
But this
to
is,
an intolerable level.
this is numeracy, right? It's a
Right.
real problem. They get to say, we're reducing the number of people exposed to noise, and yet that they are, but it's because they're concentrating it on certain groups.
And then we have the health, then we have like really, strong health impacts for those people
Right,
though. So
right.
there, I think that's an important argument though, because we have a lot of health data,
And the other thing that you've got to remember is even though if the percentage goes down and the number and frequency of landings goes up, we're still going to get more noise over Milton. I don't want it to say, suddenly we went from 35% in the forest to 32%, we're in better shape. We're not in better shape.
You're right.
If the landings increase 5% a year and it goes down from 35 to 32, we're in a lot worse shape.
Right, exactly.
Right.
That's another
But-
numeracy
That's how
issue.
But on the other hand, let's face it, we're a major city, we live outside a major city. Just like car traffic
Yeah.
continues to increase, air traffic
Yeah.
is gonna continue, and there's nothing anybody's gonna do about it, nor would you necessarily wanna do anything about it, because it means that business is happening here. Things are vibrant here, that's part of what keeps our property values up, is the fact that we do have a major city that is culturally active, that brings a lot of tourism in and brings a lot of business in, that people come here to do business, and people come here for many, many reasons. And that's not going to stop.
But we want to spread the flags.
Of course, we want fairness.
Yeah.
But the fact that to think that suddenly air traffic's going to stop or diminish over, into Logan is just a
No,
pure
but
fallacy.
at midnight, when there are no winds and unlimited visibility, there is no excuse why planes should be landing over Milton.
Sure,
period.
absolutely,
And
we
they
all
do,
agree with
and
that.
they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the issue is disproportionate.
Yeah, and we'll look for
impact on
fairness,
Milton.
and I think we have to be, we have to speak with one voice as a town, and we've got to be very specific and well thought out in what we're asking for. We can't be all over the place. Decide those things that will help, that are attainable, and let's concentrate on those.
I think those are all good points. I also just want to remind people that the Board of Health did send a letter on behalf of the Board of Health. And it's up on the website when the comments regarding the 4L were there, that the Board of Selectmen provided a letter, the Board of Health also did. So, just so people know that. And it's on the website as well. Okay, any other questions for Cindy? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you. Thanks, Cindy.
Cindy.
I'm going to jump to the Logan 2014 environmental data report, since we're talking about all different reports here. And I don't know, Mona, do you want to speak to it, or Karis? In terms of, just give us maybe like an overview.
Well,
I know that you
it's
had
a
sent that
report,
before,
yeah, it's a report that Massport submits every year to the, is it every year, every 2 years, to the Secretary of Energy and Environment for the state. And it talks about, some environmental impacts. And many towns, and Milton has in the past, written a response to that report. And I think it's really, really important that we make sure we send a response this year. So we had some short deadlines, snow issues last year, and nothing went. So
So I
I
think
think
the
that-
deadline is, excuse me, do you?
I think
is
it's
it
November 6th. Cindy said it? November 6th, November 6th,
Okay.
so, yeah. Anyway, so I think that that's really important that the town gets, it's a really strong letter out, and I drafted something, but it was, long story, with the snow and the short deadline, it didn't go last year, but just some of the main, like, I can share that with you, but it's some of the main points about the increase in complaints from Milton, the disproportionate distribution, all of that. But that's an extremely important office to be in touch with.
Actually, on that note, I did have reached out to DEP, which works under the Secretary of Environment and Energy, to ask what they are doing, if they are following what's been going on in the health impacts related to Logan. So I have calls into the air office. But in terms of your letter, if your suggestion letter, I think the selectmen and I are meeting before the end of the month, and we can certainly take up some sort of draft of that at the same time. And I think in terms of the comments about the overflights and the complaints, we have some data that we already calculated for the 4L letter that we can use and, we can talk about.
And another member of this committee who's not here, Andy, he made some really great charts about the complaint numbers, so I think they could be incorporated as well. So, yeah, I'm happy to share my letter. I think Cindy also wrote a letter last year, but from her as a town meeting member, and so you might want to look at her letter and ask her if it's all right, if there are points that you would like to incorporate. And I don't know, I think you might want to coordinate with Cindy too. I think that she might be writing a letter as well in response. So just to coordinate the town's response. I don't know, you could ask her, but I'm not sure.
And the deadline's November 6th, you said?
November 6th. Any citizen can respond to them, but.
It would be nice if it came from the town, though. I think it might be a little stronger.
I think that
than a
the
citizen
town
responding.
absolutely should respond. I think it's really important.
I think that would be very good.
Have we been responding every year to this?
No, we did not respond last year. And the
Okay. How about
the
before
very
that?
first time that we responded, I think, was the year before that.
Okay.
And it was the grassroots committee that drafted it. And the board, the selectmen voted to, adopt it and send it, so. But that was the first time. And towns like Somerville and Cambridge, they write, large responses with lots of data to, defend their point of view. So we need to really be on this, especially given our situation, so.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on that? I think we're all set. Okay, so let's go back up to goals and objectives, and we can sort of put that together with discussion of the committee. So does everybody have a copy of the draft of the goals and objectives? So this committee, the Airplane Noise Advisory Committee, is a combination of joint appointments between the Board of Health and the Board of Selectmen. And so the draft has also gone to the Board of Health to review. I believe it's gone to the Board of Selectmen, and it's here. So just for comments, questions, concerns, or anything that you want to add on that? I don't know if people have had a chance to look at it, and do we have copies for people that might not have it?
I have copies.
Does everybody at the table have a copy?
Yeah.
Anything people want to add on to that? Grab my copy.
Do you know who wrote these? Travis, did you write them, these goals?
I provided some input into Anne Marie. I'm not sure who actually drafted them. Did you draft them?
It was in unison with Barbara Martin,
Yeah, then we discussed them at our
staff,
last
and then the
meeting.
Board of Selectmen.
I think we made a few additions to it and
That's correct.
tweaked it a little bit.
So we should have complaints and
I think
comments.
based on the discussion today, add another objective, which is prepare advocacy letters as necessary, something like that. Or prepare and consult on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was wondering if for the goals and objectives, whether we could kind of group them together, because right now it seems like it's more of a list of things to do, which are all good, all useful, but like once we do them, we're gonna tick them off, and, like number 6, once we invite the state and federal elected delegations in Milton to speak. we'll be done with that then. Do you know what I mean? Like, so maybe we could like lift these out and think of broader categories.
Categories,
Yeah, like, ensure liaison with, or contact between federal and elected, officials with Milton. Continual or,
I also think, though, as a committee, though, you can appoint certain members to play certain roles. I know that subcommittees have been discussed. I think that's a good idea. I think that, potentially you could have someone who could handle the public relations effort internally to take information in for the website, so that residents could be kept abreast of
Right.
what is happening. I think that would be a very powerful method to intake information from people and respond. I think that, this committee itself should be the clearinghouse for Milton, for people to go to. Ultimately, it's going to report, obviously, to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Health, but I think that, the people who do the good work and the volunteer work on this committee, they should be the ones who are driving kind of this agenda.
I think that's a good idea, yeah.
I think the other thing is to add on, I noticed, like, for instance, at the bottom, with the support of the Board of Selectmen, it should be the Board of Health also. I don't see that the Board of Health is mentioned up here. And also under number 4, to also add into the Board of Health for the updates. I think that would be an important piece of it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Are there any other things people want to add or questions or?
No, I think one of the very important points here, though, is to try and document the scope and size of the problem in the town in a way that's both understandable and dramatic, if you will, I guess, so that we can reach out to the elected officials, to Congress and to Lynch's office, and give them some ammunition to go to Congress with. This is the problem in Milton. This is what they deal with every day, 24/7 almost, and really make a strong statement about it. And then secondly, what the fix is, or what we believe a fair and equitable solution would be, and just get that message out.
I agree with Tom. I think we need to have an end goal for Milton, what we want to get out of this. And I think that we all need to work together to get to that goal. And I think that means bringing everybody in who has some knowledge or has some passion and listening. And I think that this committee can play that role for the town. We can bring in, some aviation experts to talk about certain issues or certain things that they're very good about, to lend a little bit more support to what we're trying to get to ultimately. But I think that your point's well taken, Tom.
On that note, when I spoke to the congressman's office tonight, one of the things that they're looking for is hard data. And what they said to me was, you're dealing with the FAA, you need to convince the FAA, these are a bunch of engineers. Think about what types of information are going to resonate with them. So I think it would be useful to see things like some further analysis that might have been done of the complaints, or some analysis that Cindy has done about the actual runway use statistics and the number of overflights Milton is getting related to the wind patterns, related to other communities, things like that. I think those are important pieces of information that would be very useful for the congressman to take, and useful for everybody in the town, but also for the congressman to take and use to try to convince the FAA and other members of Congress to understand the size and scope of the problem in Milton.
Absolutely.
I think the other point that should be taken is that we should be working with neighboring communities, because there'll be more strength in numbers if it's just Milton, it's just Milton. If we have, support of, say, Hyde Park or Dorchester or, a couple of communities, Canton, Randolph, or whatever, with us, I think there's more strength in numbers. So I think that's important to try to bring those people in and to work with the town and hopefully have similar goals, because I think that will help as well.
I think Cindy's been working on that.
We are going to reach out again. We did reach out. We reached out about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, And for the most part, our neighboring communities had no interest in airplane noise. Canton, Dedham,
Randolph.
Randolph.
I reached out on the 33 left issue and got
Absolutely no interest.
no
Now, maybe
interest.
it's changed, so it's probably worth doing again.
I think you should connect with Cindy, because I saw an email of different communities. It's more Dorchester, Hyde Park, Roxbury, and I think Canton, and there was another person from Randolph. So she's had meetings with them, so I would connect with her.
Yeah,
so
well,
you-
I mean, again, we've been, when we're discussing it, we're looking at, the officials of the town, and that's who we reached out to the last time. The town administrators, the town managers, and they had no interest in taking on the issue. They said that virtually, we get 2 complaints a year, and that's what we're getting back. Now, like I said, maybe that's changed.
Belmont, I think, was willing to,
Yeah.
they
But
were the only ones that
Belmont
had
was
an
one we
interest.
reached out to originally, and originally, they had no interest either.
Yeah,
Well, they
we
do
just,
now.
we just
Yeah.
went to a
Should we
In the
meeting.
that
last
letter?
year or so, they had, Michael had a conversation.
There was
with
a
them
bunch
last year.
of, just so you know, there's a bunch of residents that just went to a Belmont meeting, so you probably should
No,
connect.
I know Belmont
Yeah,
has
Belmont
changed.
Yeah.
is very concerned.
It's a well-oiled machine, yeah,
And
so.
are they not trying to get some of the 33L departures, though, kind of shifted over toward Milton?
Right, because they have one RNAV and we have
Yeah,
possibly five.
so I don't know if they're,
I don't think that's a community that we would want to partner
Right.
with, given that they have conflicting goals, 2 hours.
Right.
They have a
yes.
strong caucus among neighboring communities to the west of the city.
Mhm.
We need to have one for the south of the city.
Mhm.
And Karis, maybe you might be able to provide information for us or to us with regard to how.
I can tell you who to talk to, absolutely.
Yeah, they have a fabulous website for airplane noise and complaints. It should be documented for the town of Milton on how to complement what we're doing with what they have. But being in Hull over the weekend, their planes are coming in and going out as quickly as they're coming in and going out over Milton.
Yes,
It's
33.
2 to 3 minutes for every plane arrival and every plane departure. And I'm sure it's the high rent district in Hull that's being
It's all over.
impacted.
There's a lot of it out in the village, but I live at the other end, and 4:30 in the morning, every morning this week, wide awake from the plane
wow.
arrivals.
On 33.
That's 33.
Yeah, it's gotta be
Yeah.
33.
Yeah, that's
You know,
33.
Quincy, I've said this a couple of times, I don't know that all of Quincy's getting overflown, but certainly I was at Marina Bay and, having lunch, and it was, you could barely talk.
I spoke with.
One
Quincy.
plane after another.
I spoke with 3 officials from the city of Quincy 2 weeks ago, and I could not get anyone to say that they have in any way recognized or documented officials that are dealing with it. And I cited Marina Bay specifically, having been a guest there on a number of occasions, and they're lower than they are when they're coming in over
Yeah.
my house.
Extremely
And
low.
according to them, they have no means with which to document any complaints, other than code violations for noise, which kind of surprised me, given the activity that's taking place down there for what the residents had dealt with one of the clubs that existed. So I did reach out to Quincy a couple of weeks ago, just to see what their information was, and so far, that's all I've been able, and
Right.
I'll qualify that, far have been able to find out, but I spoke to people in the building commissioner's office, that's where they directed me. So it was surprising that that was the response that I
Yeah.
received.
Might be interesting to, find out who the city councilor is for that particular district.
Marina Bay is considered, according to the gentleman I spoke with, kind of a separate entity from the city, that they have their own set of, for lack of a better term, rules and regulations that they abide by. It's not separate from the city, but it's their own community, so to speak.
So they're not, they don't
She's
have
got
a
a
city.
smile on her face like she knows something.
Actually, I know too.
Irene, you have to come up to the
Yeah, you have to
microphone.
come up. We
Come to the
can't
They
hear
can't
you.
hear you on
mic.
television. You'll have to
Come
come
to
up
the
to the
mic.
microphone.
I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question while waiting for Irene to come up here?
Two comments to make. One is.
Well, hang on, Irene, I just want to hear what Muna had to say.
Oh,
quickly.
sorry, thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, is it possible to build a coalition to talk about the RNAVs, the communities with the RNAVs, just to see, because some of the other cities in the country are trying to roll back the RNAV patterns. And I think, trying to like keep the diagonals and to get them fanned out again. So, based on just some principles, not so much, like shift the noise here, shift the noise there, so. I think Quincy benefited when Braintree did, by the way, with that the old CAC president was from Braintree, so.
Yeah.
Because,
Yes, and so it was very effective, I think.
yes, she was. Took her a
So-
long time, but she was effective.
She in the back from Somerville.
I wanted to mention something about Belmont. In December, when we made the motions, Belmont, Myron made the motion for 33, and I asked him to make the motion for the southbound part of 33. And the perception is that the southbound route, he refused to allow the southbound route to be included. He only wanted the westbound route. Because they said, well, the planes that come southbound all are at 10,000 feet. And I said, no, they're not. We have data to prove that they're making the early turn. In fact, the one-year report that the FAA distributed states that they're following the procedures. But yet, if you look at the RNAV on the report, and you look at where the track is coming southbound, the RNAV is on the left, and the turn that they're taking is very early, and you can see where they're coming down, exactly where the Route 27 comes down as well. That's number one. Number two, there was a very active person from Quincy on the CAC. And you probably know her, David?
Yeah, she was out for a while and then she came back.
Well, I'm not so sure she's come back. She has,
Cancer.
yes. And so I think that's what's happened with Quincy, because she was extremely active. In fact, she was a past president.
I would be very surprised if they didn't have somebody that was active.
Exactly, because they should have somebody. So
Well, I can
I just wanted to
continue
mention
to
that
pursue
that's,
that, but-
because she was extremely active. So that's why, and I think that, maybe people reaching out she might have another contact or somebody else. But that's part of why I think that there's not been a lot of action from Quincy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I do think the important thing is that we want to find like-minded communities that want to work with us. Irene came up here from Hyde Park and obviously has said at this meeting that they're willing to work with us. So I think reaching out to maybe the city councilors over there would be helpful for the town to do, because obviously it sounds like they may be willing to work with us. So that would be a start. That's a broader
I
base.
have a good relationship with Councilor Tim McCarthy, so
Mhm.
I can talk to him, and that is a good starting point, so we can certainly go down that avenue.
Are we gonna do anything with this, the goals? We
It's
do
for the
have to
committee,
move-
the thing is, this is a draft, it's for questions and comments for this committee.
Mhm.
The Board of Selectmen is taking, they're looking at it from their perspective, the Board of Health is gonna look at it as well.
Mhm.
So all the different boards in this committee will weigh in on it. So if you have suggestions or comments, please bring them up.
I can bring it up right now?
Yes,
Oh, okay, good,
absolutely.
all right, okay, thanks. Well, I brought this idea up before, but I think that the selectmen, the ANAC, the Board of Health should try to convene a meeting with the EPA Region 1, the Department of Environmental Protection, the State Board of Public Health, whatever that is, and maybe the Secretary for Energy and Environment, and perhaps the Attorney General's office, and a high-level meeting with us and them to talk about what is happening here, because it is just egregious and it should not be happening. So I think that is something that we should really work on. I think it would be possibly be very effective. The EPA should be working on at least the air pollution issue. And they do have, still have some documentation about the noise on the EPA website, but, and I've spoken to people from the EPA, Region 1, and they said that they don't work much on noise, but they would work on air pollution. And, the Department of Environmental Protection is interested, that's at the state level, and they might be interested in what's happening to the Blue Hills, because the Blue Hills are now, intensely overflown. And the areas that are most popular, like Coden's Pond, Ponkapot, and the ski area, so forth, so.
That's why
So I think I think that's something we really, really should do. I think that's really important to bring up the health issues and the situation in Milton with these people and see what they can offer us, or what they can do for us. And I also think we should still, at some point, maybe consider going through the Massachusetts Office of Public Collaboration, because they work with mediating between towns, mediating issues with the communities and federal agencies, so, yeah. It's the Massachusetts Office of Public Collaboration. And I've also spoken to the director, and she said that they have worked on airplane noise before. She said that there's one person who worked on it, who's actually a professor at UMass in conflict resolution, so, but they specifically work with Massachusetts communities, so I think that's before we go to a lawsuit. I think that is, it's mediation, so we could see whether that we get any relief, and maybe we won't, but, at least then we could say we tried,
And so what they do, they aggregate all these different heads, or how would that process work?
The Office of Public Collaboration?
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be even Milton and, trying to work with maybe Massport and the FAA, or the agencies. So they mediate between communities and state agencies or federal agencies, I guess, so. They have a website and everything, you can look them up.
Okay, can I bring something up?
Sure.
Because I have to leave at some point.
Okay.
But maybe you don't want to discuss this, but Cindy is an issue, and I don't have a dog in this fight, but it seems to me we have to talk about this issue, because you have the head of the CAC.
David, can I just interrupt
Yeah,
you a minute?
sure.
I think that's something that probably you and the chair of our board could talk about. I don't think we might have a conversation at a public meeting like this.
This is fine with me, but let's not ignore the issue, because it's an issue.
So
Yeah,
let's
we will-
let's
we will
have
talk.
Tom
And I would say
and you
that
get together.
technically, this committee doesn't appoint
I know.
anybody to that position,
The
so.
town does.
The town does, so I think that's right, I think that should
Yeah,
be
and
what the
I would
conversation
be
is.
perfectly willing to remove myself from that discussion, but I think the town really has a responsibility
So
to
We'll-
I
address
know,
the issue.
yeah, we know there are issues on the CAC, so
Okay.
this is not the right forum.
Fine. Accepted.
Thank you.
All right. Any more comments on this? Again, it's a draft, so if you have anything else that you'd like to add, please feel free to do that. The Board of Health is going to be looking at this as well. Board of Selectmen is looking at it.
Roxanne, can I
Yes,
ask a
sure.
question that would inform, me, not just thinking about these goals and objectives, but also, this letter that we're talking about and whatever else we do? What would this committee view, or how would this committee define success? Would success be, stopping the next two RNAVs? Would it be rolling back the first three? Would it be, just mitigating the impact of, the inevitability that we're gonna have all 5 RNAVs? And I realize, that, people probably have different views on this. I'm sure there are a lot of people who would say, look, let's go back. I was reading the 2013 stats that have, 18% arrivals coming to the 4s. We need to go back to that, or else it's all a failure. What is, and I realize there's not one answer for this, but I feel like I need to have a little bit of a sense of what people would view as
Good
success.
Yeah.
Good question.
Okay, well, good, for my first one, I'm glad.
Wish I had an answer, but it's a good question.
I should quit while I'm ahead.
It's a good
All
question.
right,
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
what does anyone feel about that?
Go ahead.
Nothing.
I was going to say that the charge of the committee really at the beginning was to, and I think most people sitting here will say this, is that we don't want to have any more air traffic over the town, and try to disperse what we have fairly and equitably over other communities or water, but not over Milton. I think that's, unless people disagree with that, I believe that's sort of what the goal would be.
And that was as of when? Was that sort of a goal as of 2 years ago, and?
Well, the committee formed almost a year ago,
Yeah,
back
okay.
in like
But,
mid
okay.
November. So,
Okay.
do we have a copy, I wonder, of the original charge of the committee? I don't know if we have it with us.
I think there was like 3 objectives.
Yeah.
There's a charge.
In answer to your question, my thinking would be that it's to mitigate the
Right.
existing situation
Right.
and prevent the 2 additional RNAVs that are.
Right.
That's, our comment letter objects to the 2 RNAVs, and we know there's the NEPA process and everything else that has to be followed, but I think that's what it is, mitigate the existing situation and prevent it from getting worse and from having additional RNAVs.
Right.
You mentioned a third point, and I forget what it was, I'm sorry.
I don't think that, I don't think we're actually going to have much luck fighting the technical aspect of RNAV, but I did like, and I do support the concept that RNAV doesn't have to be always, RNAV can be fanned, and that certainly makes a lot more sense, but
But we're talking about one community having 5 RNAVs over it, and that's
Right.
a very
Right.
unique circumstance. So we want to prevent additional RNAVs from being over us and mitigate the existing problem that we have.
yeah, that we would prefer them to, you can have your RNAV, just move it out a little bit, so.
I think also by obtaining the flight tracks, I think that that's one thing that we need to really do, because we need to figure out, you know, when they're turning, why they're turning so soon, and why they're not going
Yes.
over Dedham, where they should be going.
Right.
To prove that. I think
Right.
that that's a logical, kind of, that's something that we want to.
And that can be documented, I'm sure.
And to that point, I think that might be the place that you bring in an aviation expert once you get that information, that you ask for the information, you get the information, and then that's where you bring in somebody that specializes in looking at that
And we
to
can
do the
certainly,
analysis.
we can certainly document, you know, the height of the airplanes as they come over the town, you know, that it's not 10,000 or
Right.
7,000 feet.
You
that
need to
it's-
get that data.
Right.
Yeah, and get in, you know. I think the other thing that would be helpful, you know, right now, you know, when you look at the number of people that call the Logan complaint line, there's tons of complaints, but they tend to come from a relatively few number of people, and I don't think that helps our cause, that if we could try and do some outreach to say that this isn't a problem for 200 or 250, or no, even with the survey that was done, you know, 600 and some odd people. I mean, we're a community of 27,000 people. You know, that's a relatively small number of people. You don't want to make the argument that it works pretty well. Only 200 people are bothered by it.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Tom, I think that this committee has a real opportunity, you know, by establishing leadership, to bring in other people throughout the town who have a passion to help in this arena. You know, I know that there has been a proposed meeting at Cunningham Hall next week, and I would hope that all those people understand that, you know, this is a body of people, and some of you, I'm sure, are very friendly with some of the people organizing, that you can articulate and have them get behind this unified group, who should be working collaboratively with everyone, so that we can get to our end result, to provide some alleviation from some of these flight paths, and that's our goal.
Do we know how many people are signed up for that, Cunningham? Does anybody
This
know?
is the first I heard of it, but I think it's terrific. But, you know, I think that's a tough question, because there are so many aspects to this. There's the moral issue, which I think the town can address. There's the legal issue, which I think the town perhaps can address. There's the technical issues, which are extremely difficult, very complex. If you get Daryl Pondexter's little email, which I know Anne Marie gets, they go on for pages of intensely opaque data that you really have to be a scientist to understand, much less interpret. And then you just go outside and you say, why in a night like tonight, when it's still, you have unlimited visibility, they're bringing them in 33, whereas 5 nights ago, with exactly the same wind conditions, they're bringing them in over Milton till 12 o'clock at night. What's the rationale there? Why one night over 30? I came in last night, I thought for sure we're going to go over Milton. We came in over 33. But you know what that means? It means they're probably taking off over Milton too. So it's not that we're it's not that we're saved by the fact that they're landing on 33. It just means that another part of Milton's getting hit with it. So, you know, there's no consistency here in the mind of the FAA, where you can predict with any degree of consistency where the planes are going to land and when they're going to stop landing, where they're going to land, and where they're going to go next. I don't know who makes the decision.
The
It's
air
probably-
traffic controllers.
Yeah,
They
it's
make
probably
that
not a
decision.
computer. It's probably a human being.
It is, and I think there's some emails from Daryl to Cindy that talk about that specific issue and how to sort of unpack that and figure out how that relates to decision-making and process that gets to a result for Milton to try to, you know, sort through that is, you know, it's a difficult question.
Yeah.
It is,
Give them a
because,
house to live in Milton.
there you go. An air traffic controller's home.
Yeah, exactly. Make them live there for a week.
Yeah. Could I also respond to Mike's question too, but just some, these are some of the solutions that people have been talking about that maybe like would qualify as success, but like keeping the percentage low, you know, like 18 to 20%. I think that having no late night and early morning flights, like somehow having them go over the water or use an alternate route, the fanning that people talked about, although a neighbor of mine got a letter from Congressman Capuano that said that he believed in fanning across the affected communities. Okay, so that wasn't good news.
Explain the pain over Milton.
That's very
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, it was, yeah, that's
You-
that I'm quoting, so.
27,000 people.
Yeah, I think the plane's flying at higher altitudes, and there was a CAC rep named Gene Brown who also proposed a different kind of flight route that really concentrated on, say, the commercial areas, the highway, and then the waterways for the 4R. So I think we should also investigate that to see whether that's viable. He did work with some commercial airline pilots to develop that route. Do you know anything about that, David?
No, but Gene Brown was terrific.
Yeah.
I mean, if he proposed it, it probably could be
Yeah,
done.
the FAA didn't go for it, but, you know, now they have this, way of flying in a precision path that they, I don't know why they couldn't, kind of concentrate over those kind of areas and not residential areas, so.
I think the other thing that's interesting is the congressperson from New York that had the EPA.
Yeah.
That, yeah, I mean, that just seems to make so much sense that, I don't know what kind of legs that bill might have, or.
It only has 11 co-sponsors. I was looking at it today, actually, and some independent group gives it a 5% success rate, but that doesn't mean it can't build and it can't get better.
Do we know where Lynch and Capuano?
Lynch is going to co-sponsor.
Okay.
That decision has been made, and that should be happening any day now. I don't know where Capuano is on it, however. It also does provide additional money for noise proofing and noise mitigation measures in communities as well. There was money that was appropriated, in the 80s, and then it was yanked away, and so they're also trying to get that money. That's not the ideal result, but it is one solution. There are some communities that have gotten some noise mitigation money. I think Senator Joyce's letter actually asked for an appropriation for an additional noise mitigation funds in Milton, and I think maybe that's something the town could also sign on to, as well as a whole level of responses. They could try.
Has anybody reached out to Warren, to Senator Elizabeth Warren on this?
Grassroots people have done some outreach to
They had a meeting with her,
Senator
I think.
Markey.
Yeah,
And Senator Warren, both, yeah. And we have good contact in Senator Markey's office, but I don't know whether he's ever done anything, but we should follow up on that.
I
don't know.
take advantage of all of these people that are supposed to help us and see if they will.
Maybe some of those people, if we do convene a meeting with the EPA and, the DEP and the Health Board, the State Board of Health, that some of those legislators, representatives, if not the legislators themselves, could attend, so.
So, anything else on this? So we sort of combined it with committee goals and objectives, new business and old business. If there was anything else we want to talk about or add?
Roxanne, how do you want the comments for the draft of goals to be filtered? Are they gonna work through you? Are they gonna work through the selectmen? So that you have a.
Well, from the committee, yeah, I was gonna say, from the committee, if they send them to me, I can forward it to the Board of Selectmen.
Do you have a deadline for what that is?
Well, the Board of Health is meeting, I know we're meeting Monday night, and this is something we're gonna be speaking about. I don't know how quickly we'll have our, comments together, but hopefully fairly quickly. Board of Selectmen, when are you meeting?
The 20th?
Tuesday.
Yeah.
You're meeting Tuesday. So, sort of a short timetable. I would just say if within when will you meet after that?
Through town meeting every night. But
Monday, October 26th.
Okay.
That's a meeting before town meeting. The next regularly scheduled meeting would be November 3rd. Tuesday, November 3rd.
Yeah, I think we're gonna want that sooner
So you're gonna want
than later.
to have it
yeah.
for the 26th.
Mhm. What could we use in it as a deadline? Do we wanna use, I don't know if we'll have it before your selectmen's meeting now, because we're meeting the night before, so I don't think we'll have our comments by then.
Well, we could get this committee's.
The committees could get, give us a short timetable to get the comments forward and forwarded.
And then who is it that you'd like to have work on the letter? That would be a joint effort for this committee to work with the Board of Selectmen in terms of drafting the letter that was discussed earlier tonight. You know, Janet Muna had some ideas with regard to
Those
that.
two are good.
I don't know.
Cindy and I were going to work on it, but we could have somebody from the committee work on it
That's
as
good.
well. Cindy needs to do the technical piece, because she has to identify the flaws.
Okay, who's gonna
And then will
reach
it be
out to
coming
her?
back to the committee for us to review, or?
Yeah, that was the idea, was to then circulate it to everybody to
Okay.
take a review, and obviously
And
Karis, we
Karis,
wanted to
right.
look at it.
Okay. I don't know if either one of you want to help out, Muna or Jen, or both?
It could help.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to give you the copy that I wrote in January that never
Okay.
made it, so, but it's not, it was for the previous report still, but I think some of the main points will be
But
the same.
that's different,
But
right?
that's
That's the
different.
environmental report.
Oh, that's, that's the
yeah.
environmental, report, yeah,
Right.
sorry, yeah.
Was it 2 letters?
So it's two different letters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a
What is
plan
the-
3
what is the
and it's an
environmental,
EPA.
right?
Oh, right, yeah, 2 letters, yeah. mhm.
Okay. So Muna, did you want to help out with?
The environmental,
Environmental
yeah,
letter.
yeah, the energy and environment.
Right, and that has the one that the November 6th deadline.
Yes, right.
Okay.
So,
The other letter does not have a deadline, but you
Well, then-
want to get it
right.
done before
Or
the
November
12th.
12th.
Yeah, we want to
right.
try to circulate it within the next
Yeah.
week or 10 days to everybody, the boards, the committees, to start taking a look at.
Was anyone living in this town 40 years ago, 30 years ago?
I was.
Yes.
Well, then you remember that the planes were taking off from 22 and going right over this town. And the town got together, and I remember the meeting, and we had a meeting at the school, and there were probably 500 or 600 people there with the FAA. And everyone sat there, and how the FAA got out of that meeting alive is beyond me. But they went back and they changed the flight paths. So now they go out and they turn right over the water, and they leave. And, you know, it can be done, but I think, you know, you have to have two things. You have to have the town behind it,
Right.
and the selectmen clearly are behind it for the first time, I think, united. And you gotta get all the people behind it. You've gotta have a big meeting where maybe the FAA won't attend, but the town appears to be serious.
And united.
And united, and that they'll
Right.
take it seriously. And with those two things, because Milton has always been, you know, it's the town that got run over again and again and again. It's a town that never made a sound. It's a town where they wanted to bring in more planes. Milton was a soft spot, and they did it. And it's no longer that case. And I want to publicly say, you know, I give Cindy a lot of credit. She may not be getting along with Darrell, but maybe we need a Bernie Sanders, you know, here who's really screaming at them instead of someone who's just shaking their hands. Because it's really difficult, and there are a lot of communities there that think, this is great, you know, Milton's taken the pain for 30 years, they'll take it for another 30, and she's making noises. And I, for one, really appreciate what she's done. I'm not, you know, I don't have a dog in this fight, but I think she is a dog, and we need a dog.
It's a tough committee to serve on, David, you know that well.
I know,
right?
even as Anne-Marie says, it's a tough dog to keep under the porch, which is a good description of it, but, you know.
Anything else? We should meet then shortly, because we'll have both of these letters done.
I do like the idea, it's in the goals and objectives about a video clip. And I think if we put together the video clips of people that were talking, and there was a couple of people crying at the meeting, and just showing what the impact is here in Milton, I think a video would really be,
And who is this video for?
we can show it at a meeting for the FAA, or.
Or if
when
we
they
even
come,
had the
yeah,
joint meeting,
yeah,
if you had a joint meeting with all the health boards and things,
Yeah,
and legislators, that would be
Yeah.
helpful.
Karis
Just the
had a good
impact.
suggestion too, that we could give it to Congressman Lynch for the
Yes.
Quiet Skies Caucus.
Yeah.
Right.
And
who would, the
Who
materials,
would-
yeah.
Would that be like through Milton Access, or would it through like like who would, you know, produce that?
Yeah, there will be a tape of that from,
Clips.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying who would produce it, like who's gonna go out and videotape and edit it and,
We would be able to do that
Clips
through
from
Milton
Milton.
Access,
Okay.
yeah, so long as the
You
people
have to
who
get the
were
peop-
filmed would give consent.
Right, we
Yes.
would need written
Yeah.
consent, okay.
Yeah, an advocacy piece that you can utilize in a variety of different places to underscore the impact to
It might
community
be
members.
wise to do this before the November 12th. You know, you have this meeting that's coming out from a bland, so that, it might be good to see that Cindy could show at this meeting, to see that the true impact, how it's affecting so many different folks in Milton. Yes, no?
Yeah, I think that, you know, Katie, as you had mentioned at our last selectmen's meeting, nothing's off the table. I think that we should be looking into everything as options, you know, and we should vet those as a group here and as a board and the Board of Health, and find out what is our best tactical kind of response to each thing that we encounter.
Right. I was there when Betsy's son almost got ran over. It was horrific. So, and that's his dad. So, I mean, it hits close to home, so I think that we should do it pretty swiftly.
That's great.
Good idea. Anything else?
Is
Go ahead,
it possible to, like, do we all agree about the idea about, you know, having a meeting with the EPA and the, you know, the DEP? I mean, are we in agreement? Do we want to discuss that? Can we start, like, making contacts?
That would be a recommendation to the Board of
Board of
Selectmen.
Oh, all right. Could
Ask
we-
them if they're willing or are in agreement with that recommendation,
Mm-hmm,
because that's their final decision.
So
right.
how should we do this? Do we, as a committee, get together offline to make recommendations to the board, and then, how's?
No, no,
No,
not
no,
here.
we have a
Oh, right
meeting.
here,
It has to
okay.
be all here, not
Okay,
outside
okay,
the
okay.
office.
I don't know.
Consensus on that, yeah,
No.
nothing. So if we have a
Nothing offline.
consensus about
Nothing
that
offline.
here, the Board of Selectmen is sitting here, so we can let them know that that's a consensus. It sounds like that is,
It's a good idea.
that's what I'm hearing, seem to feel that it's a consensus of great idea.
Yeah.
Mona, go
Can I
ahead.
move it?
Okay.
Is that how you do it?
Make a
Make a
motion.
motion? Can I make a motion?
Okay, and what's your motion gonna be
Well,
specifically?
I'd like to make a motion that the selectmen organize a meeting with the EPA Region 1 and the Department of Environmental Protection, and what's the state public health, State Board of Public Health? I don't know, there's another name for it.
It's DPH, Department of
DPH.
Public Health.
Department of, DPH, right, DPH, and the Attorney General's office, and
Okay.
the Secretary of Energy and Environment.
Those all done, want to do that one more time slowly, please?
Okay.
For our secretary here.
Okay, the EPA Region 1, they're
Okay.
the ones located in Boston.
Yep.
Department of Environmental Protection, the DPH, and the Attorney General's office, and the Secretary, someone from the Secretary for Energy and Environment's office.
Would this be
Get
included
all
in
those
Mass
people
Office
into
of
one
Public
room?
Collaboration, or would that be a separate
Oh,
meeting?
the Mass Office of Public Collaboration is a separate
Okay.
initiative, that's a
So the idea would be to
mediation,
get
it's
all
a
those people
mediation
into one room.
initiative.
And
Pardon
do you
me?
have,
The idea would be to get all those people into one room.
To get all those people, or at least a representative from all of those agencies
Right.
in one room to tell them what is going on in Milton, because we have the most RNAVs in Massachusetts, and, you know, people are really suffering, so we have to, you know, and see how they can help us through the Massachusetts law, through their, the powers that they hold, so.
do you have any contacts or names or anything that you would send forward from any of those? And we'll look into it as well.
I know someone who used to be, I think, high up in the EPA, I can contact. So I can start to research if you want, but,
You
We
might have
can
some
look into it
contacts,
as
Karis.
well.
I have some
Okay.
contacts.
Okay.
I've already reached out to DEP
oh,
Okay.
on this issue anyway.
huh, okay.
And I know people in most of those agencies, so
Okay.
I can continue to work that.
Okay, I will share then any contact information I have with all of you, so, if that's all right, yeah. So I made that motion.
I'll second it.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So it might
Thank you.
take a little while to get everyone together, but if you start working on it,
Yeah,
that would be
worth a
great.
try.
Oh, should I move that one
Yeah,
too?
yes.
All right. Jen is suggesting I move the second suggestion about could I also make a motion that the selectmen and this committee look into working with the Massachusetts Office of Public Collaboration to see whether they can help mediate some kind of mitigation or changes that would help Milton regarding the 5 RNAV problem here.
Okay.
So they they would collaborate between the town and FAA?
Yeah, they would attempt to mediate
Yeah.
something, and yeah, like, as I said, if we ever go to a lawsuit, I think it would be a very good argument to say that we attempted everything along the way, including mediation, and so, you don't see a problem, Kara?
No, I don't know, I've never heard of them before. I'd like to find out more about them.
Oh, right.
And, you know, be able to understand the scope of what their powers are and whether they can, and what they do with federal agencies. That's all. I would just like to be able to
Yeah.
understand that and advise the selectmen on that point.
Yeah, they have definitely worked on environmental issues, and they've also worked on aircraft noise, but I don't know the details of that. But they are currently based at UMass Boston.
It would have to be a willingness on the FAA's part to do it.
Exactly right.
I don't know.
Or at least Massport, too, because Massport has a lot of power over where the flight routes go, and the times that they allow planes to fly, and, you know, so. I mean, just to inquire, we're just, you know, to be authorized to start to
Recommendation from
inquire.
this committee, right?
Right.
Right, a recommendation, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good
Yeah,
recommendation.
we'll look at it.
Proposal to go
Have
forward and take it
have
from
them
there.
look, and have Karis look into that, I think that would be a
Right.
great
I
idea.
agree. I think we should definitely look into it, so,
Okay.
absolutely.
Need a second?
Yeah, if you want a second,
Second.
David? Okay, thank you.
All those in favor?
I'm good for that.
Aye.
So,
Okay.
Karis, you can get back to us on that as well, that'd
I
be
will.
great, thank you.
So the vote's unanimous, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
We take a vote on the committee, on the motion, and it was seconded.
I thought we just did, but, okay, sure.
Okay.
All in
So
favor? You're supposed to say all.
Good.
All in favor?
Good, good.
Didn't I move it already? I
thought you did.
moved it, David seconded.
Yeah,
And
and
we-
I thought it was unanimous.
I think we
but-
already approved it.
Yes, I think it was approved.
Okay, all right.
And I just want to say, I'll volunteer to help Michael Lynch put those clips together.
Okay,
You know,
that'd be
okay.
great,
Yeah.
thank you.
And we can show it and see what everybody thinks, if Michael is willing to work with me or anybody. Yeah.
Who's Michael
Flush it
Lynch?
out with some other things as well.
Great.
He's the head of the,
He's the executive director of Milton Access Cable.
Got it.
Oh.
He's
Anything else?
When is your committee meeting again?
That's what we have to look at. So,
Also, before we get to the next meeting, can we discuss possibly adding new members to this committee? Because I think as getting many brain cells onto this issue that has different expertise would be really beneficial for all.
what, can you elaborate a little